My cousin staged a robbery at my house. I know, because he left his Fitbit, which recorded the entire thing, including when he rifled through my underwear drawer, found my safe, and muttered, "He's gonna wish he never got that promotion." Hey there. We're working hard to hit our first 1,000 subscribers. If you love true, emotional stories, hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know. Now let's get into the story. You ever look back on a moment and realize the exact second your bloodline failed you? For me, it was a Tuesday. Gray sky, dry air, and a sticky note on my fridge that just said, "Thanks." I stood there in my ransacked kitchen, staring at a piece of yellow paper left behind by someone who knew me well enough to scribble it in my handwriting. They even tilted the H like I do. It was mocking. My name's Ryan. I'm 29, single, no kids. I work in cybersecurity, more specifically, internal penetration testing for a major healthcare firm. That's the fancy way of saying I get paid to legally break into our systems to expose vulnerabilities. I'm not flashy. I don't flaunt what I do. But I just got a major promotion after uncovering a network breach that would have cost the company 7 figures. So yeah, it was a big deal. The day I signed the promotion papers, I called my cousin Eric. He and I were close growing up, shared a PlayStation, snuck out of grandma's house together, built a tree fort that collapsed on both of us when we were 12. He was the wild cousin, the "you got an extra cig" type. We drifted after college. He bounced from job to job, mostly construction or warehouse gigs, but I figured, whatever, family's family. When I called to share the good news, he sounded genuinely happy. "Damn, bro, you finally made it. Proud of you," he said. Then came the ask. "You think I could crash at your place a couple nights?" he asked. "My lease is up, and I'm kind of between things." Now listen, I just closed on a small house outside the city. Nothing flashy. 3 bedrooms, smart home setup, gated entry. It was my first place. But I said yes. Because in my mind, I was still that kid who built tree forts with him. Still believed he'd do the same for me. He showed up the next night with 2 duffel bags, a Bluetooth speaker, and no job. I chalked it up to bad timing. But it didn't take long for the weirdness to start. He kept asking questions that didn't sound like small talk. "Yo, that lock on your back door, is it motion or magnet-based? You still keep that coin collection from high school? This Nest camera got night vision or nah?" I laughed it off, brushed it aside. But then I noticed he always kept his phone in airplane mode. Said it saved battery. I also caught him trying to peek into the hall closet where I kept a bolted safe. One night while I was half asleep on the couch, I heard him talking to someone on speakerphone. I couldn't make out the whole conversation, but one line stood out like a cracked window in winter. "I told you, he's not even gonna see it coming. Dude's too busy being the hero." The next morning, he said he was heading out for a date with someone he met at the gas station. Never heard from him that whole night. Didn't return until the following afternoon smelling like motor oil and beer. Then, I left for a weekend cybersecurity conference in Denver. I told Eric a week prior. My flight left Friday at 5 a.m. I came back Sunday night just before midnight. The second I opened my front door, I knew something was off. The lights were on. The kitchen window was cracked open. There was glass on the floor. My TV was gone. My safe had been pulled from the wall and split open with what looked like a crowbar. Drawers had been emptied. My underwear was scattered on the bed like someone had been digging for something small. And taped to the fridge was the sticky note. I stood there in total silence for maybe 10 minutes, just soaking in the violation. And then I noticed something on the floor near the door, wedged under the sideboard. A Fitbit. Still on. Still syncing. I picked it up, wiped the dust off the screen, and pressed the side button. Eric. It was his. He never once mentioned owning a Fitbit. But it was his account, tied to his Gmail. Still syncing to his backup cloud. And if you've never worked in cybersecurity, you might not realize this. But most people don't know how to turn off everything that's being tracked. The heart rate spikes. The GPS trail. The mic access for voice recognition. And in this case, the audio logs. He didn't just rob me. He recorded himself doing it. I listened to the first few seconds right there in the wreckage of my kitchen. "He's gonna wish he never got that promotion." That's what he muttered right before opening my safe. That's when I stopped being family and started planning everything. That night, I sat on the floor, Fitbit in one hand, my passport shredded on the counter, and the contents of my safe, cash, birth certificate, backup hard drive, gone. And still, it wasn't panic I felt. It was focus. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to blow up his phone. I wasn't even going to text him. Because if Eric was arrogant enough to stage a robbery and leave a live tracking device behind, then he wasn't just sloppy. He was confident that I wouldn't fight back. And I don't know if that's what pissed me off the most. The theft, the betrayal, or the fact that he thought I'd just take it. The Fitbit was my smoking gun, but I needed more. So the first thing I did, I powered it off. Didn't sync it again. Didn't upload anything. If this ever went to court, I wanted chain of custody airtight. Then I pulled the serial and saved the current sync logs to an encrypted external drive. Timestamps, GPS pings, audio triggers. His heart rate spiked exactly 3 minutes after I left for the airport. He was already inside when my plane was still taxiing off the runway. That meant he didn't just rob me. He planned it to the minute. The next morning, I went into full recon mode. I restored the backup of my smart home system. I had disabled a few cameras during Reno, but my entry logs? Still intact. Saturday, 12:43 a.m., backdoor lock disabled manually. No code entered. Just brute force override. He knew how to trip the breaker and kill the locks without pinging the alarm. Which meant that whole "yo, how do these sensors work" conversation he had with me earlier that week. That was prep work. That was him casing the house like a pro, except dumber. Because what he didn't know was that the garage camera had a self-contained battery and a local SD backup. And it caught him, plain as day. Hoodie up, backpack slung, his face visible for all of 2 seconds as he pulled off his mask to scratch his beard. I clipped the footage, labeled it Exhibit A. Still, I didn't go to the cops. Because cops meant confrontation, trial, lawyers, and maybe I wanted something else first. I wanted him to feel like he got away with it. So I did the stupidest thing a normal person would never do. I texted him, "Hey man, I'm back. Place got hit. You good?" He called immediately, with the fakest concern I've ever heard. His voice was tight, trembling, but not in a scared way. In a testing way. "Bro, what? Are you serious? Your place? When?" I told him the whole thing. He played dumb. Said he'd come over right away. And he did. He showed up in fresh sneakers, brought a 6-pack, even acted like he was checking windows for weak points. I almost laughed when he inspected the very window he had smashed. "Probably some random crackhead, man," he said. "You know how it is out here. Suburbs ain't safe like they used to be." Oh, the irony. I let him ramble. Then, casually, I dropped a little bait. "Yeah. Weirdest thing though, whoever it was, they left a Fitbit." He froze. Just a flicker. A half-second of wide eyes. Then he shrugged. "Huh. Maybe one of the movers left it or something. Nice try, *T. I hadn't moved anything since closing. So now that I had him on the hook, I reeled him in. "You mind helping me install new security? Since, you're already here." That's how I got him to unknowingly help me set up the next phase. Together, we upgraded my system. I added 3 dummy cameras with blinking lights to distract him, while hiding 4 micro cameras around the living room, office, and back hallway. One inside a smoke detector, another inside a light switch plate. I also set up a new smart lock with one major difference. Every time it's used manually instead of via code, I get an instant alert, with audio recording from the door mic. Oh, and I replaced the thermostat with a model that has passive motion tracking. Just for fun. Eric slept in the guest room again that night, like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't robbed me blind just days before. But I was already 3 steps ahead. The next morning, he left early. Claimed he had a job interview. But I tracked the Fitbit's last sync before I shut it off. 2 days ago, it showed him driving into a neighborhood where another house had been hit. Same MO. No forced entry. Electronics taken. Safe cracked. I ran the address. It belonged to a guy named Jared. And here's the kicker. I knew Jared. From high school. Which meant this wasn't a one-time hit. Eric was working with someone. That same day, I pulled my laptop and ran a quiet scrape of Eric's Google account. Most people don't realize how much metadata syncs between apps when permissions are lazy. But Eric's security was laughable. Buried in the cloud cache were 2 deleted photos. One of them, my passport, laid out next to a pile of loose credit cards. The other, a selfie of Eric with a guy I hadn't seen in years. Jay Harris. And suddenly, it all snapped into place. Jay had been arrested for burglary back in 2017. I remembered it because it was the talk of our old school Facebook group. Jay and Eric used to hang out. Skipped class together. Jay was the kind of guy who sold bootleg phones out of his backpack and had a whole hustle in 10th grade. So now I had a theory. Eric wasn't acting alone. He was staging hits with Jay, targeting people they used to know, using insider info, getting just enough to keep it quiet. But me? I was different. Because I had the logs. I had the footage. I had the Fitbit. And I wasn't about to let this in quietly. There's something terrifyingly satisfying about watching a predator walk straight into a trap you set, especially when they think they're the one holding the leash. After confirming the Jay connection, I dug deeper. I pulled every old device Eric had connected to while staying in my house, even once. That included my spare guest room Echo Dot, the upstairs Roku TV, and the guest Wi-Fi network. And wouldn't you know it, he'd used my Wi-Fi to log into his Gmail from my living room. So I did what I do best, crack the back end. I'm not proud of it, but I used a few gray hat methods to access Eric's deleted emails, cached metadata, and auto-synced cloud entries. The man didn't just leave digital breadcrumbs. He baked a whole damn cake and left it cooling on the windowsill. In one deleted thread titled J Stuff, he spelled it out. He's gone Friday through Sunday, got the layout. Safes and hallway closet. Got about 10K cash. Electronics, IDs, maybe a few cards. We'll split 60/40ths. He owes me this anyway. Owes me this. It wasn't even about money. It was personal. He thought I owed him because I made it out, and he didn't. Another message had a photo attachment, zoomed-in screenshots of my old bank statements, which told me he had either broken into my email at some point, or he was planning identity theft. I didn't panic. I didn't change my passwords right away. That would have tipped him off. Instead, I created a virtual honeypot, a fake financial dashboard with dummy balances, a decoy crypto wallet, and false, pending wire transfers. I set it up so that if he logged in or forwarded anything, I'd get a silent ping. Within 48 hours, he fell for it. He tried logging in from his iPhone. And not just that, he attempted a password reset using my recovery email. I let it go through, then forwarded everything to my lawyer. Her name is Dana. She's handled cybersecurity breach cases, digital privacy violations, and a few messy identity theft battles. When I showed her the logs, the Fitbit audio, the GPS trail, and the camera footage, she whistled. "You're not just building a case," she said. "You're building a slam dunk." Still, I told her to hold. I wasn't ready to hit nuclear just yet, because I had one more move. I invited Eric back for help, said I was thinking of investing in a home gym and needed help moving some equipment in. He said sure, probably thinking there was more to grab. He showed up that afternoon. Same cocky smirk, same oversized hoodie, probably hiding tools, like last time. But this time, he didn't realize he was walking into a fully wired surveillance hub. Every room he entered, cameras were rolling. Every question I asked, scripted to extract confession or contradiction. "Hey, did you ever see that Fitbit again? That thing vanished after the break-in." He blinked. "Fitbit? Nah, man. Probably belonged to the guy who broke in." "You sure?" I said, because I tracked it to my garage, right before the power went out. Silence. He fumbled for a second, then mumbled something about a power surge. But the camera caught the flicker of fear behind his eyes. Later that night, I got a new alert. My bank flagged a suspicious attempt to open a line of credit in my name. $30,000, flagged as urgent medical need. The application used my real social, birthday, and employment info, but listed a different mailing address. Guess whose apartment it traced back to? That's right, Eric's. That was the last straw. I called Dana. I sent her everything. The smart lock data, the financial bait logs, the audio files with time-stamped threats, even the screenshot of him sending my passport photo to Jay with the caption, "We could do some damage with this." We agreed on a plan. No police yet. Not until it was public. So I did the unthinkable. I invited Eric and Jay to dinner. I told them I was thinking about investing in their hustle. Played dumb. Said I was working on a side project that needed people who could move gear discreetly. Jay was hesitant. Eric sold it hard. And as they sat in my dining room, joking about low risk, high reward, the house lit up. Every camera, every mic, every data capture system activated. It was the digital equivalent of closing a steel trap. Eric leaned back in his chair, talking about how everyone's a mark if you're smart enough. Jay said, "Most of the time, they don't even realize they've been hit until you're in another state." I asked, "You mean like my house?" That's when Eric looked up. I stood, picked up the Fitbit, and tossed it onto the table between us. "You left this behind. It recorded everything." Jay laughed nervously. "Man, you messing with us?" I shook my head. "No, but the cops will." Then I hit the button. One press. Every file, every log, every photo, synced and sent, automatically, to my lawyer, the local police, and a private security investigator hired the moment I saw my first bank alert. Eric stood up fast, knocking over his chair. Jay cursed, but it was too late. I smiled and said, "You know what they say, heart rate never lies. You know that expression, the walls are closing in." That was Eric, sitting in my dining room, trying to figure out if this was a prank or a setup. Jay stood frozen like a cornered raccoon. His hand hovered near his jacket, but I already had that covered. House security was on lockdown, doors sealed, no signal in or out. I had installed a Faraday mesh in the walls last year, mostly for fun. Tonight, it was war paint. I didn't yell, didn't explain, just watched them squirm as the Fitbit blinked on the table between us, mocking them with every flashing light. Eric tried to play it off. "You trippin', man. You think I'd steal from you?" I just stared at him and said, "The heart rate monitor says otherwise." 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. 2 uniformed officers. One detective. One digital forensics specialist. I stepped aside and let them in. Jay bolted. Got as far as the backyard before my motion-triggered gate snapped shut. The detective tossed him in the dark. Eric didn't run. He sat there, breathing fast, eyes darting, looking at me like I'd just killed his childhood dog. He didn't say a word as they cuffed him. Didn't say a word as they read him his rights. But when they pulled his phone out of his hoodie, unlocked, and still mid-text to Jay that read, "We're F. Ed," I caught the flicker. Regret. Or maybe awe. I didn't care. What mattered was that it was all on record. The camera in the dining room got the entire setup. The Fitbit data was officially entered into evidence. And within 48 hours, detectives had matched the timestamps on Jay's phone with 3 other burglaries in the area, including one where the homeowner had been home and sedated with sleeping pills hidden in his drink. That's when I realized it could have been worse. They didn't just rob people. They targeted people they knew. Former classmates. Family. Friends. People who wouldn't suspect them. Who would let them in the house. I was almost one of them. But I didn't get a call from Eric. I got a call from my mother. And that's when this stopped being fun. "What did you do to Eric?" she asked. "No. Are you okay?" "No. I heard what happened. Just instant defense." Apparently, Eric had spun a whole tale from the holding cell. Said I framed him with planted evidence because I was jealous he had a business opportunity coming up and I wanted to ruin it. A few of my aunts bought it. So did one cousin. But then the cops made the Fitbit audio public in the case file because it proved motive. And guess what? He muttered my name. My full name. Ryan F. Miller. Thinks he's better than me. Thinks he's too good to help family. He's gonna wish he never got that promotion. You know what kind of person says that during a robbery? A person who didn't just want your stuff. They wanted your life. When the rest of the family heard that, the group chats lit up like a Christmas tree. One of my cousins, James, DM'd me privately. I knew something was off with him. He stole from me back in 2018. Grandma covered for him. So this wasn't new. Eric had been slowly burning bridges for years. I just happened to be the one who turned mine into a tripwire. But the worst part was my dad. He called me that Friday. Said he didn't like the way I handled things. "You didn't have to get the cops involved," he said. "He's family." Family. He staged a robbery in my house. He tried to sell my identity online. He ransacked my safe, stole my passport, tried to open credit lines in my name, and nearly framed me for a multi-state burglary ring. And the only thing my father had to say was that I went too far. That's when I stopped returning family calls. Let them sit with it. Let them stew in the silence. Because Eric wasn't getting out on bail. The charges now included burglary, identity theft, credit fraud, conspiracy, and intent to commit financial crimes across state lines. Jay. He flipped almost immediately. Took a plea deal. Turned over screenshots, text threads, even voice messages from Eric. One of them had this gem. "He's just a keyboard guy. Thinks he's smart, cause he makes money doing nerd s***t. I'll show him real hustle." They thought I was soft. They forgot I built systems designed to catch people exactly like them. And the beauty of it all? I didn't lift a single finger to hit back. I just listened. And when they handed me the knife, I let them cut their own throats with it. By the time the dust settled, Eric had been behind bars for 2 weeks. Jay had already flipped. His lawyer negotiated a deal in exchange for full cooperation. I didn't expect much from it. Maybe a few more texts. Maybe some tools recovered. But what Jay handed over, that changed everything. It started with a voice note. "We should have hit Ryan first. He's got the gear, the paper trail, the ego. And if it hits the fan, no one's gonna believe he didn't screw us." Jay's voice was calm. Eric's voice was louder, nastier. "I know where he keeps everything. You think he's smart? He's not. He just got lucky. Everything he's got, it should have been mine. He only made it because I helped him get clean back then. He owes me. Owes me." That phrase kept coming up. Over and over again. Jay's statement included screenshots, photos of my house from outside, taken weeks before I even bought it. Eric had been watching me long before he texted me about staying over. He knew about the promotion, knew about the closing date, even knew about my renovation contractor, who he accidentally bumped into at a bar and grilled for tips on smart home installs. This wasn't an opportunity. This was a setup. Eric had been planning this for months, maybe longer, digging through my social media, using old family contacts, tracking what I posted, what I wore, what tech I mentioned in passing. And buried in one of Jay's old WhatsApp threads was the final nail. "Let's hit him, then hit Jared's place next." Dude was a bully in school. Between him and Ryan, I got all the ammo I need. That's when I realized it wasn't about stealing from rich people. It was about settling old scores. This was Eric's twisted little redemption arc. Everyone who had ever made him feel small, overlooked, irrelevant, he turned us into targets. Jared, the old classmate. Me, the cousin who got out. Probably others I didn't even know about. He wanted to hurt people not just physically, but existentially. Break-ins that felt personal. Sloppy enough to get noticed. Clean enough to pass off as coincidence. Just enough to leave you shaken. Except mine didn't go according to plan. Because I didn't just have security. I had surveillance. And receipts. And a lawyer who was now sitting on enough digital evidence to make a federal case stick. That's when the state got involved. Because when you cross state lines with someone's ID, passport, or financial info, it's not just local cops anymore. It becomes a matter of interstate fraud and identity trafficking. And guess what? Jay had already admitted they'd shipped some of my info to a buyer in Illinois, trying to sell my credentials on the dark web. They never closed the deal. But intent was enough. That bumped the charges again. Eric's lawyer tried everything. Temporary insanity, manipulated by Jay, substance use relapse. But the Fitbit crushed all of that. Because you can't fake planning. And he planned everything. The week before trial, I got a letter from Eric. It wasn't an apology. It was a justification. For pages, handwritten, rambling about how I had it easy. How I never shared what I had. How he was the one who pulled me out of a bad crowd in high school. How he deserved a cut of my success. He actually wrote this line. If you just gave me $10,000, none of this would have happened. That's all I needed to start over. You think you're the hero, but all you had to do was share. I laughed. He didn't want help. He wanted to punish me for being the person he told himself he should have been. That's when it all clicked. The sticky note on the fridge, written in my handwriting, that was his way of saying, this was always mine. And the most poetic part? That note was logged in the Fitbit audio. It recorded him whispering to himself as he stuck it up. Thanks, Ryan. You should have stayed average. No, Eric. You should have stayed away. By the time we got to court, Eric wasn't so loud anymore. No swagger. No smirk. Just a cheap suit, cuffed at the ankles, and a lawyer who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Jay sat 2 rows behind him in civilian clothes, flanked by 2 state prosecutors. That alone said everything. Jay had taken a full deal. He pled guilty, turned over evidence, agreed to testify, and had already been sentenced to 8 months in county and 5 years probation. Not a slap on the wrist, but not life-ending either. Eric, on the other hand, he went down swinging. Tried to argue the Fitbit was planted. Claimed the voice wasn't his. Said he was being framed by Jay, that the camera footage was edited, and the whole break-in was actually staged by me for attention. His defense attorney tried a Hail Mary, said I was paranoid and obsessed with surveillance, to the point of constructing an elaborate revenge fantasy. And for a moment, I worried, because he wasn't entirely wrong. I was paranoid. I had been building this case like a thriller novel. But then the prosecution stood up, played the Fitbit audio, and synced it with the timestamped GPS logs that showed Eric driving from his apartment to my house, breaking in, and muttering my full name as he opened my safe. The jury took 3 hours to deliberate. They found him guilty on all major counts: burglary, identity theft, financial fraud, conspiracy, and intent to traffic stolen documents across state lines. He was sentenced to 9 years in state prison with a minimum of 4 before parole. No one clapped. No one shouted. It was just over. The judge looked at Eric and said one thing before slamming the gavel. You didn't just steal property. You violated trust. You weaponized familiarity. That makes you dangerous. Couldn't have said it better myself. After the trial, I filed a civil suit. Not for the money, although I did win a judgment for damages, legal fees, and emotional distress. What I really wanted was the gag order lifted. Because for nearly a year, I had been legally barred from speaking about the details online. But once the case closed, I posted everything. Every audio clip. Every video. Every screenshot. I turned it into a 10-part digital forensic series called Betrayed by Blood, the cousin who tried to erase me. I uploaded the full breakdown to a small YouTube channel I'd started during quarantine, just hobby stuff before. But this went viral. For 0.2 million views in the first month. The story hit Reddit, Twitter, even LinkedIn. Suddenly, I was getting interview requests from podcasts, blogs, and cybersecurity conferences. People weren't just hooked by the betrayal. They were fascinated by the method. The fact that a Fitbit had become the key to a multi-state crime ring, that made headlines. And then, something unexpected happened. A mid-sized home security startup reached out with an offer. They'd seen the series, loved the forensic breakdowns, asked if I wanted to consult and co-create a digital home defense curriculum with them. I said yes. The same week my cousin started year 1 of his sentence, I signed a contract to launch my own security brand, with full ownership of content and IP. I used a small part of my civil payout to upgrade my house. Motion-triggered deadlocks, biometric panels, quantum-encrypted storage drives. Not because I needed it. Just to remind myself, I'm not the victim. I'm the architect. And as for the rest of the money, I donated it to a local nonprofit that helps people recovering from financial fraud and identity theft. Because for me, it was never about revenge. It was about restoration. Eric tried to turn my life into rubble, so I built a castle out of it. And every time someone asks, "What made you start your channel?" I tell them the truth. My cousin left behind a Fitbit, and it recorded everything. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.